I need to test the. Hello? Hi, Grace. Can you hear me? Kind of. She is.
Hello. Hello.
Feedback.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. There we
Okay.
go. Just barely. I think I need to turn up. I don't know what I need to turn up, but something. Those are all the way up. So actually that might be the best it gets. But can you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so it is 3 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. We have quite a few people out today, so everyone, please, wash your hands. And just kind of stay up with your health. It's very important. I know it's hard, especially when if you live on campus, you're going to classes, there's a million people everywhere. It's really hard, but do your best. And if you get sick, just let me know and we can work with it. So I wanted to just talk first about a lot of the kind of events that are happening, these extra events. So you can attend these to cover if you are losing points for absences or something, you can attend these events. So I'll send these links out after class. These are not art history events. We actually don't really have any special lectures this month, but we will again in November. These are all related to East Asian Studies, the East Asian Studies Center, but they are adjacent to art history. So one thing is on this Thursday, October 10th, we have this really cool lecture. I've seen this professor talk before on this topic. His name is William Tsutsui, and he does research and writes histories of like Godzilla and like the politics of Godzilla and like representing all that kind of stuff. So he's doing a talk in the Kansas Union at 7:30 on in the evening on Thursday. It's free. I should be there, but go if you want to get the points, extra credit points for it. Just take some notes if I'm not there, and we can, just send them to me. So the other thing I want to announce, and I actually want to pass this poster around, I am actually moderating a film viewing for this series, which the Center for East Asian Studies does a film series every fall. This theme this year is the digital age. So all the films are at least loosely related to the idea of the digital age, give or take. Some of them are in the Union and some of them are at the Lawrence Public Library. The one I'm doing is going to be October 19th, which is a Saturday at 1 p.m. and that's actually at the Lawrence Library. And it's a really great film. It's called Past Lives. Has anyone heard of this before? It was an Oscar nominee and everything like that. It's really good. So I'll pass this around if you want to take a picture of all of them. The first one starts on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And it's like actually a horror film, I think, that we're watching. So if you're into that, you might be into that. Okay. And then the last set of things that I wanna put here. The museum. So the museum is having a few things happening that are related to East Asian art this month. The first one is this one here, their Textile Tuesday, which is tomorrow. I just found out about it today, though. They're looking at some East Asian textiles and talking about bats. So we've seen bats at least one time when we were talking about Lady Di's banner. Remember there was a weird bat on it, right? So this is just a viewing. So I think they'll have people talking and stuff there. But if you want to go to it, just take a picture of what you see of the stuff that they have displayed out. That's plenty. I probably will not be at this, but it is a cool opportunity. The other one is this Thursday as well. There is, if you're into tattoos, right now they have actually a tattoo exhibition upstairs. And I think it's mostly Japanese stuff. So they have a panel at 5:30 p.m. upstairs. That's tattoo artists. I don't know what they're going to talk about exactly, but it'll be related to the exhibition. So you can attend that, take some notes. I might be at this one, I'm not sure yet. So we'll see. Yes, Arden.
Since I'm on the advisory board.
Oh, yeah.
We got to learn a little bit about this last session we had at our meeting. It's gonna be really interesting from what I hear, and I believe it's like actual it's kind of like a workshop thingy, not like full on like, oh yeah, we're making tattoos, but they're like going through their process. So if you like learn how to do tattoo art, it's a good experience to like actually ask professional tattoo artists what they do and how they work their craft and stuff. And the exhibit itself is really interesting too. There's a lot of really nice pieces, lots of Japanese-based pieces as well.
Yeah, so we will go to the museum actually on the 30th of this month together. It'll be our first visit. We're going to do 2 visits. So we'll kind of go through the exhibition a little bit. We'll probably I'll pick something for us to look at together. But yeah, this is kind of a really cool opportunity for something you don't see very often in museums. Are there any questions about events or anything like that? If you're done, are you done with the poster? You're off again. Thank you. Oh, did you want to see it? Okay. So let's go. So we need to catch up. We're not catch up, but finish up. There's just a couple, like 3 slides here that we didn't finish on Wednesday. And then we'll do our review. Okay. So we were talking about this town called, well, it's actually a city, Nara. And it has this very famous temple there, or monastery called Todaiji. Todai means Eastern Great. So if it helps you remember the name Todai, you can just say Eastern Great Temple or Monastery. That's fine. And as a fun thing, I meant to bring in, I have a little like beanie that I bought in the city. That's a deer. I meant to bring that in to show you guys, but I left it at home. So I'll bring that in maybe on Wednesday. And remember, Nara is a very fun place. I'm just encouraging you, if you ever get to go to Japan, check it out. Okay, so when we go into this building here, this is just one of the precincts of the monastery. We see this here, and this is called, in Japanese, it's called Daibutsu. So Dai means great, and Butsu means Buddha, so it just means the great Buddha. That's what you can call it. And this one is on your exam list as well. So does anyone have any guesses which of the Buddhas this is that we've talked about? So we've talked about quite a few of them. We have Shakyamuni, we have Vairochana, and we have, do we have one more? Oh, Maitreya, right? Sarah, did you have a guess? It is Vairochana. Yeah, it's Vairochana, right? So there's not really a way to like know that specifically. It's just what it's intended to represent. So remember, Vairochana is the cosmic Buddha, the Buddha from which all other things emanate from. So this was constructed originally in the 740s. It did undertake some damage and was reconstructed, refurbished in the 1600s. Does anyone think they know what medium this is? Or have an idea? What do you think, Arden?
Gilt bronze.
Yeah, so bronze or gilt bronze. Oh, I thought I put that on the slide. No, so bronze or gilt bronze is fine. Either one is fine. This part on the back, I believe, is gilded. I haven't found any. Usually people just say it's bronze, but I'm pretty sure it's modernly gilded. So this one is 53 foot tall, which I believe is actually the tallest one we've seen so far. And yes, like I mentioned, it was damaged in fire. So this one was commissioned by an emperor named Shomu in the 740s. And after that, they held what was called an eye-opening ceremony, which is just like a dedication ceremony for the icon. And he was so moved by this ceremony that he actually abdicated the throne. What does that mean? What does it mean to abdicate, Gabby?
Step down.
Yeah, you just step down, right? So, kings and emperors, they're actually allowed to stop whenever they want. And he actually stepped down and he joined the monastery as a monk. He was so moved by this. So he joined the clergy, and apparently his wife too actually followed him, joining the clergy there. So, what do you think? What might it be like to see this in person today? So we have quite a few things going on. It's very busy. What are some things that you notice about this? Sophie, what's something you noticed?
It's very colorful compared to the other ones.
Yeah, so notice this photograph might be a little bit kind of enhanced, but it is generally very colorful when you go there. So there's not a lot of, like, you can tell we have all the altars down here, and they even have these like bushes or little trees that are planted. The wood is very colorful. It's like this red painted color. So yeah, it's much more colorful than what we've seen so far. Gabby?
It also kind of has that framing that we saw on the one.
Yeah. Yes. Do you remember Sakura, the Korea one, in the Shilla Buddha? Absolutely, yeah. So talking about the wood here, they've positioned this in the building so that this frame, it gets framed. If you're standing right in front of it, everything is kind of focusing your attention to it, right? Hazel, did you want to add something?
I don't have the rest of my notes with me, so.
Yeah, that's okay.
Is this one bigger than the other ones?
Yes,
Or-
this one is, I'm pretty sure this is the biggest one we've seen so far. So the one at Longmun, so do you remember that was the one that had the monk attendants and the bodhisattvas and the guardian kings? That one is 45 or 43 or 45 feet tall. And so this one's even taller than that. It's about 10 foot taller, which probably is so big that you won't necessarily notice the difference if you actually go, but it is still much larger. What is the one big difference about this large colossal Buddha compared to the other ones that we've seen? Yeah, Kylie?
There's like no attendance.
Okay, so keep that in mind with you. That is what it looks like, but there actually are attendants. It's very hard to get the whole picture, but that's a good thing to notice, that this picture doesn't really show us anything else. Yeah, Hazel?
It was cast, it wasn't carved out of the mountainside.
Yes, exactly, right? So we haven't seen a bronze object this big before, right? Most of the ones we've talked about, they range, some of it you talked about for your analyses. I'll talk about those a little bit before we do the review. You talked about some bronze icons that are maybe 4 or 5 foot tall, but not anywhere near this tall, right? This is probably the biggest bronze object or casted object in general that we'll even talk about in the course. I don't personally know of a larger one, actually. I'm sure there is in other cultures or somewhere else in the world, but as far as East Asia is concerned, this is probably the biggest bronze thing you're ever going to see. Yeah, I think it was a piecemeal cast. A lot of you talked about this. So, you have this large like mold and you're pouring things into and then connecting it together. So it's very high technical skill required. So here are some better images that show us what the whole building kind of layout is like. It's very hard to get one. Oh, this one turned out a lot blurrier than I wanted it. Oh, and I need to move this too. Let me put it down here. So here's some more views. Here's an aerial view. I especially wanted to include that so you kind of get an idea of, so there's a bodhisattva here and a bodhisattva here. So it is actually, why is this not working? Oh, I have to press. It is actually a triad, although it's very hard to get a full picture of it because there's not really an easy way. You can't get the perspective from the doorway. These things are very closed off. They are religious objects, icons. People use them for worship still. If you watch one of the videos, they actually show them like cleaning it and doing a ritual cleaning of this object, which they're like hanging from the ceiling and going down. It's kind of like they use those things that window cleaners on buildings, on like high-rise buildings use. So you don't need to know the names of the bodhisattvas that are with it, but one of them is Akasagarbha, who is a wisdom bodhisattva, and then Avalokiteshvara, who many of you wrote about for your analysis, the bodhisattva of compassion. This one is Akasagarbha here, but yeah, so he's not by himself. So I also want to look at this because it gives us kind of a good idea of the designs and stuff on the mandorla. We haven't really gotten to see a very clear mandorla yet. I think this is probably, these are a little bit blurry still, but you can kind of get some detail here. So what are some of the details on this mandorla that stand out to you? Arden?
You can very clearly see, since usually, if I remember correctly, there's usually like tiny bodhisattvas scattered
Mhm.
all throughout. Usually they aren't very clear, but they're like their own separate figurines and they're very like cleanly sticking out.
Yeah, exactly. They're like very high relief bodhisattvas. They're almost like attachments, I think. I'm not sure how they casted it exactly, but yeah, so notice these so these Buddhas, these are meditating Buddhas, and so they're not bodhisattvas technically, but you're on the right track there. They're meditating Buddhas. They're very high relief, like almost kind of like their own mini kind of version of the giant Buddha. Yeah, so that was one of the reasons I really want to show you. What else do you notice about it? Rainey, do you notice any interesting details about this mandorla? Can you say it louder?
top or the bottom?
So they're the same.
Oh,
So yeah, it doesn't matter, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, what we're talking about, these like really high relief kind of Buddhas that are meditating around. Good. Yeah, Gabby?
They kind of put those like lines,
Yeah.
they kind of like raise the sunlight in like my interpretation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So notice these lines here. We haven't seen that before. This is kind of interesting. Yeah, maybe light, I think is what it's supposed to be, like beams of light, maybe. I mean, I think that's probably what they're supposed to be. I haven't really read anyone really take that into much consideration, but it's very ornamental in that way, right? Sorry, am I standing in your way, Kai, or can you see it?
Oh, I was distracted.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we have these, you know. Any other details that kind of stand out to you about those? Those are the main big two. I mean, you can see these kind of swirling patterns a little bit better in this photo. And the fiery kind of patterns as well. So, you know. All right, so any questions about this large Buddha? Because we'll kind of put all this together.
Sorry, I have a question. Are we able to
yes.
see this one in person?
I have actually not seen this one in person. I did not go in to see it because it's like, if you're coming as a tourist, it's like $45.
Okay, so it is open to the public though, to
It
view.
is open to the public, yes, yeah. So it's a tourist attraction, but if you are actually a Japanese citizen, you can go for free. Yeah, they do that a lot. I know that sounds very discriminatory in the US context, but they do that in Japan and Korea a lot because they try and discourage tourists from being annoying. So that's why. But yes, thank you for asking. All right, so let's look at all three of these together. So we have our Longmen from China, the Tang Dynasty, 660s and 70s. We have our Todaiji from Nara, Japan, 740s. And this should say Shilla actually, or Gyeongju or Shilla, Korea, 750s to 60s. So what's kind of similar about them? What is something similar? Give me a moment to think about it. What do you think, Arden? You can start us off.
Facial expression.
Okay, tell me about that.
The facial expressions, it reads to me almost the exact same, like,
Mm-hmm.
even like down to their noses, the nose on the Nara one is a little bit wider, but
Mhm.
like, they all have the same exact, like, indifferent expression.
Mm,
Maybe, I forget how you pronounce the one from Korean,
Sakura?
yes, it
Yeah,
looks a
Sakura
little bit
brought
more
it.
peaceful. But
Mm,
the other two, probably because the eyes look closed, but the other two definitely, they look like they're indifferent and looking down upon you.
okay, interesting. So what is making you say they look indifferent though? What do you think they're doing in their face that is saying indifference?
Reading facial expressions, the eyebrows are
Okay,
like,
the eyebrows,
the eyebrows and like the slight, like,
kind of very
downward
down.
look.
Mm-hmm.
and like the, like, rested mouth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is
Okay,
slightly giving, rested.
yeah, RBF kind
Yeah,
of, yeah,
RBF.
a little bit, yeah. Gabby, do you want to add to that or something else? Mm-hmm.
The kind of more rounded build,
Yeah, absolutely.
like all three of them.
Yeah, okay, so these are two great similarities, so, yeah, the kind of very, indifferent type of face, the slightly open, slightly closed eyes, the kind of pursed lips might be how you kind of explain those lips, and kind of like this or something. And the eyebrows, they're very circular and kind of very downward, right? And then, yeah, the body shapes are overall very round. Those faces, we've talked about that, right? The kind of round cheeks and faces, a lot of roundedness in these Buddhas, good. All right, so what are some things that might be different? Cadence, do you have any ideas?
Well, the
Mhm.
Chinese one and the Korean one, those ones are both like carved out of stone.
Right.
And then the Japanese one is bronze.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a very important difference, right? So yeah, so these ones are stone here, but then we also have the bronze, right? So even though it's different media, we still have kind of similar stylistic similarities, right, between the faces and the roundedness of the bodies and everything like that, right? What's another difference, Julia?
The Korean
Mm-hmm.
one, in the round, or.
Yes, very good. Yes.
And the Chinese one and then the Japanese one are
Mhm.
high relief.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good way to kind of explain it. So yeah, so remember the Shilla one from Korea. This one is in this like round chamber, and everything is kind of encircling it to enhance its meaning. And then these two are basically up against a wall in a way, right? So this one is actually kind of more positioned centrally in the building, but there's nothing on the wall behind it. So that's kind of it's kind of like Julia said, kind of just like high relief, if you will. And the same thing with this one, right? So this one's just kind of up against the wall here. Yeah, very good. So, oh yes, Gabby. Mm.
The robes in all three of them are a little different. Like
Oh,
the one
sure.
with the Chinese one is like completely covering his
Mhm.
body. The one in the Japanese one kind of has like this like fully exposing the chest, and the Korean one has like half exposing the chest.
Yeah. So it's kind of like if I move this one to the middle, we would have most modest, middle modest, and then least modest here, right? So they're gonna get less modest as time goes on or something like that, more revealing, yeah. Maybe it's cultural differences for that reason, don't really know. I mean, they're still, they still all kind of have those monk's robes though at the same time, right? It's just very simple, it's just drapery across, yeah. So despite these differences, because of the similarities, why did I do that? Don't do that. Sorry. That was an important point. Okay. So despite these similarities, a lot of times, look, starting with this Tang Dynasty Buddha, scholars will say that at this time period, we have something called the Tang International Style, right? So the kind of the context of their display are a little bit different. The media are a little bit different, but like what Arden and Gabby brought our attention to, their faces and the overall roundedness, this kind of the style is pretty consistent across all three, despite there being some iconographic differences like with the robes and with their display areas and things like that. So we don't necessarily have direct connections that tell us that these guys over here, the people who made them saw this Tang Buddha and then based it off of that. But we do know that people from Japan and Korea were going to the Tang Dynasty at the time. They didn't know about these colossal Buddhas. So they must have brought that kind of knowledge at least about it back. And they kind of followed a very similar style. So Tang International Style might be something you want to talk about for your exam. So are there any questions about the colossal Buddhas before we move on to our exam review or anything that we've reviewed in class or talked about in class? Okay, so let me open this up. We're gonna move on to our exam review. Oh, crap, I left my candy in the room. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, well, let me say this first and then I'm gonna go get that and I'll be right back. So if you didn't submit your visual analysis on Friday, I didn't send out an announcement. So I apologize for that. I drafted one, but then I didn't schedule it to go out. So I sent it out on Saturday instead. So for those who haven't submitted it yet, you have until Friday to submit it for late points. To everyone who did submit it, everyone did a really good job. You clearly followed the instructions. I can tell we understand the iconography of the Buddha. I hope you would by now if you've been in class because we've done it over and over again. But I get it. It's confusing. So are there any questions about the visual analysis assignment? Okay, give me one moment. I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. So exam review. So it's the same kind of structure that we had last time. So I'll ask a question. We're going to practice the identifications first, and you'll kind of see just for this exam, the identifications are a little bit different because we have some things that are just generally about Buddhism to discuss, not just like our specific artwork. So if you looked at the list, you notice there's some of the like Gandharan carvings that are just showing the life scenes of the Buddha. And then I'll also probably ask you like, is this a Buddha, Bodhisattva, or something else like that as well? So as a reminder, the IDs are each worth 5 points. I really encourage you on Wednesday, even if you don't know it, you put something down so that I can give you at least 2 points. Some people, 2 is better than 0. It can really help you in the long run. And there'll be 10 of them. Some of them I might, use the same artwork and ask you 2 things, just like last time. Maybe not so much on this exam, but it's possible. So this is half of your exam grade, 50 points. All right. So this is very long. Name that scene of Siddhartha Gautama's life. So you could just give me like the general description of like what the scene is showing in Siddhartha Gautama's life. Or if you have the title, the exact title memorized from the exam review sheet, you can give me that as well. So it doesn't have to be exact, but as long as I know this is the scene of ABC that happened in Siddhartha Gautama's life. So if you're interested, raise your hand. Gracie, if you want to answer one, I can't give you anything, but you could just say, oh, I know, or something like that. Okay, so let's start. Things they remember. What is this one? Olivia, I saw your hand first.
That's when he's leaving the palace and his life of royalty to travel the world.
Absolutely, yeah. So excuse me. So you can take multiple as well. The official title is The Great Departure, but Olivia, sorry. See, why is it flipping out like that? But Livia described it perfectly, right? So remember, he's leaving the palace. He's never left the palace before. And he's gonna go see, what were the four, do you remember the four sites? You don't need to do that for the exam, but Hazel, do you want to share them with us? Or some of them at least?
An ill man.
Ill man,
A homeless man,
uh-huh.
and aesthetic.
An aesthetic, yeah.
And
One more, it's the worst of them all.
somebody dying.
Somebody dead, yeah, a dead person here, exactly here, I'll give you some. Yeah, exactly. So you don't need to tell me the sites, but good to know, just as general knowledge. Okay, so you probably saw what the answer for this one was, but you might not know what's going on here. So what is this one? Okay, Gabby?
Siddhartha's human body dying.
Yes, very good. So do you remember the Sanskrit word for it? You can say that, that's totally fine, but I'll be really impressed. Julia, do you remember it? Yeah, great. So parinirvana or Siddhartha Gautama dying, both are fine. Both are fine to say, but you'll see in general, you'll see parinirvana written a lot more often than Siddhartha Gautama dying, so. All right, what about this one? This is Sophie, saw you first.
Queen Maya's dream.
Queen Maya's dream, yeah, exactly. So remember, had the elephant enter her side and get it. Elephant in here. And this one I think is the hard one. Arden?
Mars assault.
Good, yes. So that's the official title, Mars Assault on the Buddha. Can you kind of explain what's going on?
So when the Buddha sat down to meditate, and it was kind of like the thing where he's like, "Ooh, I'm meditating and I'm finally achieving enlightenment." Mara, who's like, if I remember correctly, who's like a demon of sorts, kind of like
Mhm.
tempting
Mhm.
towards like, no, don't, because I don't want you to achieve enlightenment, woo, and sending a bunch of evils, but
Mhm.
Sadidihara resisted them.
Yes, exactly. So there was the demon's name or the evil deity's name is Mara. He's actually from Hinduism. And he sent all these people to attack Siddhartha Gautama. And also I mentioned there were some his daughters he also sent to tempt him, sexually tempt him, and he didn't give in to either of those things. So. Oh, see, what the heck? Okay. What about this one? Yes, Will. Saw you first, sorry.
Birth of the Buddha.
Birth of the Buddha, yeah, and what's kind of weird about it or kind of fun about it? Yeah, so just like the elephant entered Queen Maya's side, the Buddha, Siddhartha, when he's born, he comes out of her side. Yeah, then he like stands up and goes like this immediately, and he cooked for. They say that he cooked for 9 months or 10 months instead of 9. So he was already a little bit old, a little bit wiser for that. Something people say. Okay, so the birth of the Buddha. That's fine. You can do. There's no fancy word for it. Okay, so now we'll just do some of the, so are there any questions about these? This will be exactly like that. You don't need to, there's nothing, you don't need to tell me, oh, it's made of stone or anything like that. So just, what is the scene?
The non-location either.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think on the review sheet it says Gandhara, right? I thought we would talk about Gandhara a little bit more than we really did. Do you happen to remember what that is, Kai?
No.
Yeah, okay, I figured not. So I won't ask you Gandhara. I won't ask you that. Remember that was that country in Central Asia that was the first kingdom to be a Buddhist kingdom. I mentioned that really briefly when we did our intro to Buddhism. And that's actually where Buddhism came to China from, not from India directly. It came through this other one. So you just need to know the name. So thank you. I'll have to update that for next semester. Okay. So name the iconographic feature or deity. So we're going to start with the deities. So deities, we have Buddha, Bodhisattva, and maybe some other ones. There's one other one who hopefully you remember. And then I'll have some arrows pointing to particular parts on a Buddha or a Bodhisattva and ask you what that is. So let's start with this one. What is this? Rainy? Buddha, yes, very good. If there's one thing that I hope you learned, it's that this is not a Buddha. Yes, Buddha. Do you remember what the Buddha is?
Didn't he like give
To the children.
Yes, exactly. Do you remember where he's from? Yeah, so he's Chinese. He's a Chinese kind of folklore figure or folklore deity. Who gives runs around, he plays with children, and he's kind of like people compare him to Santa Claus a lot of the times, kind of like just a happy man. All right, what is this? So not the art historical info on it, but like what kind of deity is this? Maybe some Molly? I don't think you've answered yet.
It's a bodhisattva.
Yeah, yes, so, so this is Maitreya, the Bodhisattva. In this case, you just need to know this is the Bodhisattva, but it can be good to know the names as well. So yeah, Bodhisattva, so can we remember how do we know that this is a Bodhisattva? What are some ways we can know that? Yeah, Kylie?
The crown and the like,
Yeah, the crown, and then, these princely skirt kind of a robe. We've seen it on a Buddha before too, but definitely this kind of very naked torso here. We haven't quite seen that on a Buddha. Remember, even the great Buddha, that one, it was covered a little bit, but definitely the crown, I think, will give it away. All right, now what about this guy in the middle? Who is this? Who hasn't answered one yet? Ava, do you think you know? Can you remember what kind of deity this is? Is it a Buddha or a Bodhisattva? Not a Bodhisattva. Peyton, do you want to answer? Yeah, so this is a Buddha. So Peyton, what tells you that that's a Buddha?
Oh, it's in the middle.
In the middle, yeah. So if there's multiple figures like this, the one in the middle is going to be the most important one, right? And that's the Buddha. Yeah, exactly. All right, so it's a Buddha. And so these guys over here then are what? Those are bodhisattvas. Yeah, exactly. So remember, the ones on the side are usually the bodhisattvas. All right, now these guys are fun ones. Does anyone remember what these are called, Kai?
Guardian King?
Yeah, Guardian Kings. Can you tell us a little bit about them? Do you remember anything?
Oh, there's 4 of them.
Yes, there's 4 of them.
And
What do they guard?
well, I'm right now they're guarding Marachna.
Yes, Virochana, right, yeah, the Virochana Buddha, the cosmic, sorry, I think they're done. Yeah, so they're the guardians of specifically of Virochana. Specifically of Virochana. Good. All right, so let's look at some of the features. So I'll show you a couple different pictures here. This thing right here, what is that? I don't remember what I put down.
Mandala or
There's
something.
different things you might be able to say. Cadence, you haven't answered yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A mandorla?
Yes, mandorla, yeah, mandorla. So remember, little bit different than the halo. So the mandorla is like kind of this leaf ring of fire that's around the halo in the middle. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's kind of hard to mix. It's easy to mix those two up. All right, so this is that thing on the head. What's the thing on the head? Sarah, you haven't answered one yet, have you? No, okay. Yes, the hard one to say, Ushnisha. So the bump on the head, do you remember what that is kind of symbolic of? Exactly, yeah. So not just wisdom, but his brain is literally bigger than other people's brains. He's that wise, that smart. Okay, so this is kind of pointing to here, but there's kind of two possible things you could say if I point to that. I think, has everyone answered and gotten something? I think so, right? Okay, Gabby? Mudra, yeah, so mudra is one of them. Can you remind us what a mudra is?
What's the hand position?
Yeah. Yeah, so the hand positions, they mean specific things. What's something else related to the hands? Yeah, Will? The chakras, yeah. So I realized after I made this and I was looking, I was like, okay, I'm just kind of pointing to the hand. That could be multiple things. But yeah, the chakra. Exactly. Can you remind us what does the chakra mean? Sorry.
It's like the it's more of balance, right?
Not balance, but teaching. So remember, it's that wheel. It's the wheel of teaching, right? And so it's kind of like, usually it's on his hands. It could also be on his feet, but kind of usually when he raises his hand, it's just a reminder of the Dharma, that wheel of teaching. Yeah, good. All right, let's look at this one. This one is a little thing right here. Hazel? Yeah, Urna, yeah. So can you remind us a little bit about that one?
I mean, it's like a beam of light.
Yeah.
Or it's representative of a beam of light,
Mhm.
coming directly from the forehead. Yeah, I don't really.
And so what might the purpose be?
Like a guide.
A guide, yeah, like a guide, exactly. A beam of light, that's like a guide. Okay, so this is pointing to the circle behind the head. Pointing to the circle behind the head. What's the circle behind the head? Yeah, Sophie?
The halo.
Yeah, that's just the halo, right? So, that's the kind of difference. Circle behind the head, or with the Buddha, there's also usually one that's around the body as well, but that's just the halo. And then this part on the perimeter is the mandorla. All right, this is the last one. So what is that? What pointed to this part? What kind of significance? Pardon?
Earlobes.
Yeah, so the long earlobes. I probably won't ask you that one because it's kind of simple, but yeah, so what's the point of the long earlobes?
The point of the long earlobes is to represent, the Buddha's previous life as a royal, because they would usually
Yeah.
stretch out their earlobes for earrings.
Yeah, so the earrings that he doesn't wear anymore because he rejected that life. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now we'll get into some of the actual, I think what are probably going to be the more difficult ones. So name that country and era. So I'm just combining these two for our review, but you might not get them together. Yeah, Kai?
I think there's like one extra report I think I saw. I don't know if I probably got confused, but it was about Amida. I thought I saw.
Really? Oh, I thought I thought I deleted
saw-
that. I thought I
saw a
deleted
picture.
that one. I'll look and show you. There might be an extra one. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So there should just be the ones that we talked about in class that are on the slides. If there might be an extra artwork we didn't get to talk about on the review sheet. I'll show you guys the review sheet the updated one that I have, but if you downloaded it probably before I updated it, then you probably have an extra one. So thank you. It won't be on the exam though. It should be like kind of like a really colorful square. Hold up, mandala. You don't need to know that one. And it is related to Amida, I think. Okay, so don't worry about that one, but thank you for bringing that up. Okay. So, country and era. So this is camel carrying musicians. This was the Sansai, the 3-color glazed earthenware. We talked about this briefly. Molly.
Is it the Tang Dynasty of China?
Tang Dynasty, China. Yeah, exactly. Do you remember this one? Kind of. This is our only one that's not specifically related to Buddhism. So remember these musicians here are probably from Central Asia. Well, this guy here, let me get out of your way. This guy here is probably Chinese, but then the other guys are probably actually Central Asian. Okay, country and era. So this is the Puruguk, the Buddhist nation temple. Do you remember this one? Do you remember this one, Kai? Oh, okay. Good. Yeah, Sarah?
United.
Good. So United Shilla, and what's the country? Don't overthink it. I think you had it. Not
China?
Japan, Korea, yeah. So United Shilla is fine too. I know it's kind of hard. Do you know? Why not, right? I like those too. Yeah, so United Shilla, Unified Shilla, later Shilla, that's all fine. I'll give you the years. You don't need to memorize the years. Yeah, but remember this one is Korea specifically. So this is our only like monastery image that's on the list, I think. I think there originally was a couple other ones, but I took those off. All right. So this one, let's do country and era first. Let's see if we remember. Kylie?
Japan.
Yes, good. So Asuka period, Japan. And then remember, this is our first artwork that has an actual artist associated with it. And starting next chapter, we'll have next chapter, we'll have lots of artists, actually. So does anyone remember? I will ask you what the name of this artist is on Wednesday. So this should be your freebie. Cadence?
Toriboshi.
Yeah, Toribushi. So the double S there. I will ask you on Wednesday, so you should know it. Yeah, Toribushi. So do you remember how we know that?
Wasn't there an inscription?
Yes.
I don't remember where it was on it, but I had the name.
Yeah, great. So the inscription on the back of the mandorla says that Toribushi was commissioned to make this. This guy named Toribushi. He actually has quite a few sculptures that are in his name. I forgot to mention that. So he was quite a famous sculptor. Bronze, I guess bronze or metal worker at the time. Okay. Okay. So now we'll move on to medium. All right, so we just talked about this one, so this one's kind of easy. Remember Hazel? Bronze or gilt bronze, yeah, either one is fine. You can say either one, because the Buddha is kind of just bronze, but the bronze like gilt. So, does anyone remember the name of the monastery we were just talking about?
Eastern
Okay.
Great Temple.
Oh. Eastern Great Temple, yes, thank you, Gracie. Yes, Eastern Great Temple. So Todai, Eastern Great Temple is also fine. I know the names in English. So you can say Todai-ji Temple, Eastern Great Temple, Todai-ji, Todai Temple. Just as long as you have Eastern Great and Todai in there somewhere, that's what's important. Okay. All right, what about this one? What's the medium? Bonus points if you know exactly the medium. Olivia?
Marble.
Very close, very close.
Granite.
Oh, yeah, granite. Yeah, Gracie got it too. Yeah, good. Yes, granite. Yeah, granite. I'm trying to think if we'll see marble. I don't think we'll see marble in the course, but there are marble Buddhas. There are marble ones. We just didn't look at any of them. Yeah, so granite. This is actually granite. And then do you remember? Sorry. Do you remember what the name of this one is? It's a hard one to pronounce. Where this one is? Olivia, do you remember that? No, don't remember that. So this is a hard one. Sakura. Make sure you can spell that, because it might show up. Sakura. It's very hard, but fortunately, that's its name. Like in English, that's what we call it, is Sakura. You know, so you have to know it. All right. Okay, now we'll just kind of focus on the location. So either the temple or the grotto. All right, so this was the better picture. I still think this looks really blurry though. But do you remember we talked about this on Wednesday and we were like, oh, the picture looks kind of bad. I still think you can get the metal work a little bit better. You can tell that it's metal, but I still think it's like kind of hard to tell. It might just be this projector. Anyways, what's the name of, where is this one located? Oh, I might be asking us our temple names on Wednesday. Kylie? Old UG, yeah, Old UG, or does anyone remember the, Grace, do you remember the English name?
No.
No, Flourishing Law is a name. Oh, sorry, did you know it, Payne? Oh, okay, yeah. Flourishing Law Temple or Hold UG. Okay, we might be getting that one. Yeah, so remember that was the one in Japan that also had the Buddha with the big mandorla that we were just looking at too. All right, what about this one? So the title, I want to ask you the title. So for this one and the other grotto that we have, you need to know the cave number. Do anyone think they remember what the title for this one is? Arden?
Something along the lines of Hiroshima, and it's cave 19.
Yes, good. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. So cave 19 by Rochna and attendants. If you just put by Rochna, I think I'll take it. That's fine. Because there's a lot, I don't know why they call it that. There's a lot more than just the attendants usually means the monks. So I don't know why they call it that, but that's what they call it. So it could be called like Vairochana Assembly or something like that, but yeah, that's fine. But cave 19, you do need to know that because there's many caves at the grotto. So all right. So does anyone remember what is the name of the grotto? Molly? Yes, Longman or Longman. Do you remember what it means in English? Do you remember?
I'll take another one.
Oh, yeah. It means Dragon's Gate. Dragon's Gate. So if that's easier for you to remember, just put Dragon's Gate. All right, I think this is the last one. Okay, so do you remember the cave number and title for this one? Julia?
Cave 20.
Yes.
Seated Buddha Triad.
Very good. Yeah, so cave 20, you can say seated Buddha Triad. If you just put Buddha Triad, that's okay too. Would you like one, Julie? Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, but you do need the cave 20. Remember, there's many caves there, so. And then do we remember the name of this grotto? Remember it? Okay, Julie? Yeah, good. Yeah, you're on the right track. It's pronounced Yungang, but Yungang is how you would probably read it in English. Yeah, Yungang grottos. And does anyone remember what that means in English? Because that might be more helpful. So it means cloudy ridge, cloudy ridge. So like a, it's on a cliffside, so cloudy ridge. Maybe that's why they call it that. All right. So she's. All right. Are there any questions about the IDs? We will be seeing some location ones for some of them on Wednesday, so be prepared for that. Okay, yes, Rainey.
Will you ask him like how you were to make it?
Yes, probably I mean, I did that last time. There's a lot of artworks, but for this exam, but a lot of them, I want to say like 6 of the 12 or 13 are those scenes of the Buddha's life. So I might have to end up doing like, okay, give me the title and the location or something like that. So you should know, you should know both things or be prepared. Thank you for that question. That's a good one. Any other questions? Yeah, I know. These are hard. It's just memorization. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have like 25 minutes, right? So let's review the long essay questions. Did we all look at them already? We already looked and chose our artworks and everything, right? Sure. So remember, you need to talk about the 2 artworks. You need the basics. So, where it is or what it is, where it is, what it's made out of, when it was made. You need your description, and I have some extra vocab to help you with that this time since we were a little bit lackluster last time, but I know we'll do better this time. And your interpretation, which is actually answering the question. Okay, so this is a really big slide. So let me read it out loud. So choose 2 examples of Buddhist art from class and interpret how they demonstrate the connection between religion and politics in East Asia. Each example should be from a different period and a different country. So really it should be easily this time like different country because I think we only had like 1 period per country. Introduce the basic information about each example, the title, era, and year, medium, temple, or grotto, and describe the example to help the reader imagine what it looks like. Explain the connection between religion and politics with evidence from the visual elements and proper historical contextualization. Okay, are there any questions about this question before we kind of do we're going to work in partners to talk about it for like 10 minutes or so. Okay. All right, so I gave you 2 here, 1 right here, 1 right here. We just looked at them briefly. So talking to someone next to you or behind you or whatever, we might need to do 3s, that's fine. So for like 5 or 6-ish minutes here, what would you say using these 2 artworks? What are some things you would say about them to answer this question? All right, let's go.
Are they both like things No, I know. Yeah. That's all I remember. Yeah, right. But I think yeah, it's gonna be nice. Yeah, and it was like a statement. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I know especially like. Like, you know, it's. Yeah. That's probably. Yeah, these was not.
Okay, we're very quiet over here. So what are we thinking? What are we?
I'm trying to think about, so I'm just thinking about how the second part is connected with politics and politics at least.
Okay,
But maybe about religion, I can say that, on the right one,
mhm.
that perhaps there's like consistency. It's like, so we have to event, like, pretty much like match both artworks, or it's like a match.
But you don't, so this question isn't necessarily asking you to say, like, is it next to one another? Like, you don't need to make a direct connection between the two, or anything similar, but you do need to be able to like answer the question with, right, so.
Second, like, you know, you can like say, well, like, what the reason is. That religion and politics.
But so that would be.
Other one, and then explain separately religion and politics.
Exactly, so they don't need to be like the same connection, right? Politics, they can be a different connection, which is kind of part of the reason I put these up here in this case, right? Because they are a little bit different. So do you remember, you said you remember the second one, right? How does that one connect to relation with politics? Do you remember? What was the context of its creation? Yeah. Do you remember that? You said remember something?
Oh, like, there, I mean, I.
Yeah.
First one a lot better.
Oh, okay, well, what about the first one?
I don't remember if there was an emperor behind that project, but all I know is that it's a pretty big, yeah, there's always an emperor.
I think everything we've seen in Bible, there's a king or a behind. Question, I mean,
I don't know what scene
Is that
specifically,
the
but
emperor was sick and the empress did that, or was that the other one?
So the vibrational with attendant was that one.
Okay.
There's another one that was also similar, the prince.
Yeah.
That was the smaller, the sculpture
Okay.
of the. Neither of these are actually related to illness. Maybe review the slide.
Yeah.
The textbook, don't you remember what we talked about?
so,
Yeah,
for politics.
okay, yeah,
They
for politics.
not have manpower, but, you know.
Okay, sure.
And power to build that, but also for religion. It could be saying that if you're building a sector, you know, karma. You know,
Good, from a-
the Buddha, well, like, something making a big money of the historical Buddha.
Yeah, so karma for whom or for what? You remember Lisa? We use this term. Exactly. Not just karma for me, but karma for the entire kingdom, right? We want the entire kingdom.
But I was
So that's our religion and politics, yeah.
Okay, and then Rajma is the one that's for like the picture of the quote emperor.
Yeah, the one that's not pictured here. I think it might be on the notes. Okay, so we've had a lot of ideas in here. So do we understand the question?
Yes.
Do we understand politics and religion connecting? Okay, we've kind of, I mean, I felt like I tried to get us to talk a lot about that, but you know, maybe it's still a little bit. So, do we remember, let's just try and get what the contexts are for both of these, and then we'll kind of talk about it. So, what was the context of this one's creation? You don't need to remember like all the details off the top of your head right now, but does anyone remember? Yeah, Sophie?
The emperor had like previously persecuted.
Yes.
And now he wanted like good karma.
Exactly. And good karma for whom or for what? This is important for these questions, yeah.
The emperor or the kingdom.
Yes, exactly. So remember that term. Oh, I meant to bring these up. So remember you have to use these terms, or at least 5 of them. Okay, I don't know how to do these. Sorry, I meant to bring these up. No, I'll do that. I'll bring it up for the next one. So remember we have someone in here somewhere? No. Attendance, okay. I thought state protection Buddhism was one of the ones in this list. I'm gonna add it, but remember we had that idea of state protection Buddhism, right? Or state protection Buddhist projects, right? So I'll add that term into this list, because that's definitely a word you can use for this, this question here. So yeah, so this one is, thank you, Sophie. The emperor, his name was Wenchang. In the 460s, the Northern Wei dynasty. So if you're practicing, you need to know all that stuff if you use this one. He had persecuted Buddhism in the decade prior. He had a realization that that was wrong and that Buddhism was, the Buddha's way was right. So he started doing these projects for his karma and for the state's karma, right? Does that make sense? Do we understand that, right? Okay. Now, what about the context of this one here? Do we remember what the context were? This one is a little bit complicated. Kylie, do you think you can?
There was like a minister that wanted to create this grotto
Yeah.
for his parents.
Yeah.
And then he died like halfway through it and the king finished it for him.
Good. Yeah, so there's a minister. Now, if you decide to talk about this one, you do need to be able to give me those details, right? Minister, his name was Daesung or Kim Daesung. And he started it as a project for his parents, but then he died, and so the king, his Emperor Hyegong was his name, he continued it, right? Okay, so well, how do these demonstrate now? How would you kind of explain how these projects connect the idea of religion and politics together? How would you kind of say that? What do you think? Okay, Arden?
Doing good for the Buddha. And the
Okay,
Buddha
yeah.
is good for you, it's karmic,
Mhm.
basically getting good karma.
Yeah.
For future prosperity of not only, in the, Buddha triad,
Mhm.
example, that would be for, the state in general.
Mhm.
It could be for both of them as well.
Mhm.
And also for, political prosperity as a power move and kind of like going like, look at the power I have, I can build this.
Good, okay, so not only state protection in Buddhism, but also the idea of, we also have this idea of the emperor associating with the Buddha, right? Or the people in charge being associated with the power of the Buddha as well. So that definitely connects the two, right? If you have the big deity and you have the big ruler who are, one and the same or connected, good. So are there any other ways you might connect it? Yeah, Cadence?
It might be kind of a way to like, especially like the one on the left where he was persecuting
Mm-hmm.
Buddhists, like it might be he's trying to get on their good side again.
Yes.
Kind of like on the people's good side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of relate to them again.
Yeah, okay, good. So, yeah, that kind of goes along with karma, but I see what you're saying. You're talking about like the people,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so the people who were Buddhists over whom he ruled, right? And so trying to get back on their good side as well by adopting their religious beliefs as part of his rule. Absolutely, that's another connection. Good. Are there any more? I think these are kind of the main ones. Does anyone remember what was the big deal about the making a Buddha project for your parents? Does anyone remember that? What's the big deal with that? Arden, do you think you can explain it?
Filial piety, which was a Taoist, ideal, I believe.
It was Confucian, but yeah.
And it was kind of like a wow, parents, words. Parents are super important in kind of like parental connection and honoring your parents.
Good, yeah. So I don't know if that one necessarily connects with politics, but for the other question, which is about religion and beliefs or religion and religious practices, that could be something you talk about this one, right? It's filial piety. You want to help your parents have good karma too. So your parents can be reborn in a good position, right? Okay. Are there any questions about these two? Okay, good. And I'll put the questions up for our next discussion. So let's do the same thing again. Choose two examples of Buddhist art from class, interpret how they relate to Buddhist beliefs and or ritual practices. So each example should be from a period, different period and country, introduce the basics, describe it, explain the connection between the artwork and the Buddhist beliefs as practice with evidence from the visual elements and the historical context. So we have two up here. So I'll just remind us, this is the pensive Bodhisattva from the 600s, Korea, Three Kingdoms. And then this is the altar with the Jataka tail, and inside here there's a little Buddha icon, right? Okay, so talk with your partner, see what are some things you would say about these two to answer the question. And I'll bring up these are the words. You have to use 5 of these words, so hopefully it'll. Hopefully it'll get it.
It's a culture. And make sure.
Yeah. In terms of that, like, practical, you know, but like how would you brand and not like big, like, take. And then, you know, but it's, we fix it, but we want like something like that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like the air.
And then for the. Repetitions. And now that I think pretty sure of all their using are concrete, perhaps they'll just look at it.
Yeah.
And they will make. And they go around it.
Go to like your jobs, like the figure and that paper and then some stuff.
Oh, yeah, I actually use it in my analysis.
Okay, we're getting a little bit quiet. So let me ask first, do we understand the question? Do we have any questions about the question? Okay, it seems like we did, but Gabby, you look a little confused.
My question.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll talk about it, and then if you still have the question, we'll listen to it. So Buddhist beliefs and or ritual practices. So what's kind of the difference between the two? So you have beliefs and then you have practices, right? So what kind of counts as a belief versus a practice? Does anyone think they understand that? Arden, you want to explain it? What you think?
The circumbobulate thing versus
Mhm.
believing in like karma and doing good.
Great, so these are two great examples here. So we have the example of circumambulation, which is one of the possible words you can use toward your, and it'll be written on the screen on Wednesday too, if you want to use that one. So circumambulation is that idea of walking around something while you're meditating. They don't just do it in Buddhism, a lot of religious practices, they do that, right? So that's like something, that's an action that you take and you do, right? So that is that a belief or is that a practice? What do you think? Practice, yeah. So that's a practice. As opposed to a belief is something like Arden said, karma, right? So you believe that if you do good and you try and dedicate yourself and do good things for the Buddha, you believe that the Buddha will help you in return, right? So that's not really like an action, that's just something that you think and you have, you know, some kind of reason that you believe in it, right? Okay, so does that make sense? Okay, so you don't need to, with your two artworks, you don't need to talk about both of those things about the artwork. You can just choose one. That's why it says and or, because not all of them, and this is kind of why I picked this example. Did we really talk about practice in relation to this one? No, not really, because we actually don't know. We don't really know what exactly the practice would have been. But we did talk about practice related to this one, right? Do we remember? That's where we had that circumambulation word. right? Okay, so then let's talk about this one here. What does that have to do with belief? What are some things you would say? Molly? Because you seem to know.
You talk about the function and the role of the bodhisattva in general
Okay, yes.
and how they acted
Mm-hmm,
in Buddhism.
mm-hmm,
Talk about how this is Maitreya,
yes.
and so you can talk about the Buddha as the teacher.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, yeah, so those are two possibilities that you could talk about, and really, I think they're the main two, I think there's a third possibility too, but. So you have just the idea of a bodhisattva in general, right, which is, the one who's, what's the word, delayed achieving, going into nirvana, achieving enlightenment to help others, right? And the idea of Maitreya, who's the second Buddha of a later time, who's gonna come. There's gonna be a time when everyone forgets about the Buddha's teachings, and then we're gonna need another Buddha. That's supposed to be Maitreya, okay? So does that make sense with this one? Seeing, okay, seeing. I think the third one is the idea of, maybe this one actually has to do with practice a little bit more, but pensive, right? What's the big deal about pensive? So remember, this is the pensive bodhisattva. What do we think? Ava, what do you think about pensive? So what's the big deal about this in Buddhism? Maybe this has to do a little bit more with practice, but why would that be important? Forgot, okay. Olivia, do you want to help Ava out? Did you guys talk about this at all?
Yeah, a little.
Uh-huh,
I think I actually forgot to mention them, it's like, mindfulness and thought.
absolutely, yeah, exactly. Mindfulness and thought, right? So this can go along with either belief or practice, but the idea that you need to be more aware and you should be deeply thinking about and meditating on the world around you, and also trying to come to an understanding of it, but also trying to kind of set yourself apart from it through your thoughts as well, right? So does that make sense? So that's something else you could say, particularly about this one, because it's about pensive, right? Good. Is that what you were thinking, Olivia? Yes, okay, good. Sorry, I think I cut you off a little bit. All right. Any other ideas about this one or any questions about that one? Okay, so what about this one then, here? What are some things, what about belief? What are some things you can say about belief with this one? Do you remember? There's one thing. I think you guys said it over here. What was the thing you were talking about with belief?
So there's like 4 scenes on it
Mm-hmm.
with Moody's past life.
Yeah, exactly. Shakyamuni's past lives. Do you remember the one we specifically talked about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shakyamuni falling off of cliff
Mm-hmm.
and then offering his body
Yeah.
to a mother tiger.
Yes, exactly, right. So Shakyamuni sacrificing himself so that the mother tiger could eat, right? So, mhm.
And maybe the lesson there
Mm.
could be like, I guess indirectly, if you're
Yeah, it's
if you're
indirect.
suffering, you can still offer good to the world.
Okay, good, yeah.
Suffering of someone else.
Yeah, so the moral of the story is up to your interpretation. I'm not gonna be like, no, that's not what that story means, but that's totally fine. I think, yeah, so even if you're in that suffering, give yourself up to others, that ultimate sacrifice. I think Olivia, you said it really well, the equality or the equity of all living things, kind of right in Buddhism. We really didn't talk about that much because different sects of Buddhism have different ideas about the rankings of life forms. But in this case, it is definitely this idea, humans and animals are actually the same kind of level of life. Or their lives should be treated equally is the idea behind it. So that's another one you could take from it. Absolutely. Good. So do we see how that one kind of relates to belief more so than like practice? So kind of beliefs about the historical Buddha, beliefs about life and what it means. Any other ways this relates to belief? I think that's kind of the main one, right? I think so. Okay, what about practice? What about practice?
For
I mean, we
both,
were just talking about it, but just to summarize or review, Gabby?
Talk about circumambulation around it.
Yeah, exactly. Circumambulation around it so you can walk around it. I think the other big thing you need to talk about is what's inside here, right? So what's inside there? Yeah, Gabby.
Icon.
An icon. I think they change who they put in there. It depends on what rituals they're doing exactly. But there they put a Buddha icon, maybe a Bodhisattva icon, and they circumambulate and meditate on the meaning of that deity, right? So that's basically what you would talk about. Anything else related to practice? Oh, I mean, I think another thing you can talk about, kind of related to practice is, Gabby, what were you thinking?
They like thought on the Jataka.
Yeah.
Jatakas.
Good, so the meditation on the Jataka tales, yeah, the meditation on that hungry tigress, right? So that goes along, that's definitely practice. And the other thing is the idea of architecture, and the Buddha hall as well, so you need to have, this is practice, it's a little bit different from what you think, it's not necessarily ritual, but you have this specific space where the Buddha icons and the icons are all placed. That's definitely a part of Buddhist practice or practicality at least. There's a little bit out there, but you could talk about it for sure, and I would count that toward that answer. Okay. Any other ideas or questions about that? Okay. Do we feel like we know what to expect on Wednesday? Kind of, some of us, okay, I'm seeing nods and thumbs up, so good. All right, are there any other questions about the exam? Or if you want to ask me one privately, you can ask me one privately. All right, well, we are done. Please do not forget your blue book on Wednesday. I will send out a reminder announcement to make sure that you bring one. I have 3 extras only, so. All right, yes, Rainey.
Should I can I use that last one? Is that the idea?
Yes, you can reuse it. Yeah, that's totally fine. I encourage you, you don't need to go buy a bunch of them or anything like that. You can just keep reusing it. That's kind of the point of the blue book, is that you just have one thing that you keep all your exams in. I think you should have enough space for all of our exams in it, but I might be wrong about that. All right, thank you. Bye, Grace. Yeah, you were.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Yeah.